to Stan the Wine Man TV. I am your host, Stan Rattan, and this is a blue collar wine show where I help you spend your wine dollars wisely. We're going to wrap up Washington Wine Month with one of my favorite wineries in Washington State. I have a lot of ones I like immensely. But in 2018, Kyle and Kathy Welch and their winery Longship Cellars were my Winery of the Year on my PI blog. And I discovered their wines, I think in 17. One of the sales reps came by and tasted me on the wines, and I was just absolutely stunned at how good they were. I'd never seen them before. They started in 2013, so by 18, they'd only been around 5 years, which is young for a winery. So now they've been around about 12 years. This will be their 12th year as a winery, which is pretty impressive. And what I like about Kyle is he's such a talented winemaker. He knows how to make great wines. And one of the things about Kyle is he doesn't just stick to the standard wines. And he really does emphasize, or really does define, how diverse Washington State wine can be. They can, in Washington State, and I've said this many times, and I firmly believe this, they can do so many different varietals very well. It's a desert in eastern Washington where all the grapes are grown. Most of them, of course, are grown there. And they have the Columbia River, huge for irrigation if they need it. You especially need irrigation to get your vine started. Some wineries probably dry farm. They dry farm in Spain. But the point is they have plenty of water. It's a desert, and there's too many varietals that Washington State cannot do very well. The only one might be Pinot Noir. Very few wineries will do Pinot Noir in Washington State. Not the perfect climate like Oregon for that. Washington State has over 1,000 wineries now, 1,050 to be exact. 90% of those wineries, 90% produce less than 5,000 cases a year, which means there's a lot of small boutique wineries in Washington State, which is really cool. Longship Cellars fits right into that category. There's 50,000 vineyard acres planted in Washington State. 21 AVAs, or agricultural viticultural areas, and there's more in the queue. They'll just keep coming and coming. So 21 AVAs. Yakima Valley, the oldest AVA in Washington State. There's 80 plus varietals grown in the state of Washington, which shows you how many different grape varietals can do so well in Washington State. In 2016, they had the largest production of grapes harvested, and that was 272,000 tons. 2024, 150,000 tons were produced of grapes. I know that the big dudes like Chateau Ste. Michelle are actually trimming down on their production. Some of their labels are discontinuing, and as a result of that, many of these boutique wineries are able to get some of the fruit that used to only go to Chateau Ste. Michelle, because the growers wanted to keep them happy since they were such a big winery. And hats off to Chateau Ste. Michelle for helping get Washington State wineries on the map. So we're going to go to what some of the diverse wines that Kyle Welch makes. And the first one we're going to look at is the Longship Cellars 2019 Pet Cheetah Grenache, Yakima Valley. Now we talked about Syrah in the last episode being, we're on the same parallel as the Rhone Valley, so Syrah does really well. Well, guess what they do in the Rhone Valley? A lot of Grenache. So it makes sense that Grenache would do well in Washington State. There's some very good Grenache out of these. So this rolls in at $28. Let's see what we get on the nose. Definitely some dark fruit notes. I'm getting plum, boysenberry. Just maybe a touch of currants coming through on the nose. Color is fairly dark. You can see through it though. And one of these days I'm going to bring the white background, I promise. What's wrong with me? But I'm going to go with kind of black plums, currants, and boysenberries on the nose. Let's see what we get on the palate. True to Grenache, you have this, pretty intense flavors with a little bit of that white pepper, black pepper thing kind of lurking in the background. Good balance, smooth tannins, plum, boysenberry, currant notes come through big time on the palate. Good balance, good integration of fruit and acidity. Get an interesting slickness on the palate as well. Long finish, and there's just a touch, a kiss of tobacco on the very back end of this wine. This is a delicious wine. This is a well-made wine. Stellar Grenache from Washington State. I'm going to go straight up. I have to go straight up A on that. I just have to. This is a new one to me. I've never seen this one before. Longship Cellars, they have the Viking boat on there. Norwegian, obviously. Kyle is Norwegian. 2022, Mr. Shuffle Carmenere. This is Sugarloaf Vineyard. And this is Sugarloaf Vineyard, Yakima Valley, 2022. This, I don't have a price point on this. On his website, it's close to $50. I'd imagine at the store level it might be a little bit less than that, but we'll just go with 50 bucks. I've never seen this wine before. I'm excited to try it. Carmenere, interesting grape, well known in Chile. In Chile they make a lot of Carmenere, and I like Chilean Carmenere. Carmenere is the 6th grape of Bordeaux. A lot of people don't know that because the main grapes of Bordeaux are of course Cab, Merlot, Cab Franc, Petit Verdot, and Malbec, but then you have Carmenere, and they don't even plant Malbec there anymore. Cab, Merlot, Petit Verdot, Cab Franc, and Malbec, and Carmenere. There you go. Really dark. This is a lot darker than the Grenache, which you would expect. Grenache tends to be a little bit lighter. You can see through this just a little bit. Well, it might be just a hair darker than the Grenache. Let's see what we get on the nose. But this has an interesting, now this is cool because Carmenere can actually be kind of vegetal sometimes. I'm careful at the store not to put Carmenere on the shelf that is too vegetal because that might turn people off. I want people to drink Carmenere. But this has a little bit of a veggie component on the nose. I'm getting a little licorice. Actually, I'm getting a lot of licorice, a little bit of veggie. Definitely currant notes coming through on this one. And there's some spicy element come through on the nose as well. Let's see what we get on the palate. Wow, totally different animal than Grenache. This has a nice, almost a mintiness coming through barely underneath the currant notes and the plum notes that are coming through on this one. Licorice is there as well. It's very interesting wine. It's cooling my palate. You get that, like you bit on a mint leaf a little bit. Not strong mint, but just kind of a mintiness it's there with the plum and currant. And there's definitely a veggie component that comes through on the top of the mid palate, kind of hits up there. You get a little bit of that, maybe not quite tomato leaf, not quite, it's a vegetable component, maybe a little bit of tomato leaf, but not strong. This is an interesting wine. This is just fun just to taste it. almost like a red flower petal thing coming through. With that, it just like dares to go mint, but it's not going there. There's a real freshness on the palate, good balance. This, talk about a good wine that would, perfect for duck. I would definitely pair this with duck. I'd definitely pair it with pork, tenderloin. Just really interesting wine. I really like it. I like the balance. Flavor profile is very interesting. It shows off that kind of herbaceousness that Carmenere can get without getting over the top. It's there, it's in balance. Long finish, very cooling long finish. Very interesting wine. I'm going to go B+, A- on that. It's a very well made wine. B+, A-. Now, I know Kyle's a big fan of Spanish wines, and he makes a Tempranillo. He's been doing it for quite a while. Longship Cellars 2020 Invader Tempranillo. Columbia Valley, this rolls in at $28 as well. Columbia Valley. I like his labels. He does a nice job. Good marketing. Cassie, his wife, is the general manager. She gets a lot involved in the marketing side of things. She does a good job. Okay, Tempranillo. Rioja. Big time Tempranillo producers. Same color as the Carmenere, really. There are some winemakers that would say, well, we shouldn't do certain varietals in Washington State. It's not made for that. We can't expect a Carmenere from Washington to taste like a Carmenere from Chile. It's not going to happen. We can't expect a Grenache from Washington to taste like a Grenache from the Rhone Valley or from Spain, where they'd call it Garnacha. But the point is these are good wines. We don't want to compare them to, it's almost like apples and oranges to a degree. Although I think that Carmenere, I think the Grenache is close to a Rhone-style Grenache for sure. And I think Carmenere really shows some of the characteristics that you see in Carmenere from Chile. So, Tempranillo, let's see what we get on the nose. This is a lot of tobacco on the nose here. I'm going to say dark cherry, tobacco, like dark red flower notes. Maybe a little boysenberry thrown in there for good measure. Let's see what we get on the palate. Yeah. This is a big, powerful wine. Tobacco notes for sure. Tobacco notes married with the dark cherry notes. And smooth tannins. There's a little bit of attitude to the tannins, but they're not heavy tannins. This would turn a lot of people into a Tempranillo fan. Just saying. Don't expect, like I said, Rioja. Do not expect it. This is New World wine, but very, very good. There's a nice little bit of a lift, a brightness in the mid palate going into the finish. The boysenberry notes, blackberry boysenberry notes kind of blend in with the dark cherry notes. And then the very back end, you get kind of a, like crushed dark red flower petals with a tobacco and a little bit of cherry. And the finish is long. Pretty cool. I'm gonna go straight up A on that one as well. I think it's a very well made wine. Kyle just does an excellent job with all his wines. And, do I like every wine that Longship Cellars makes? Well, there's nothing I dislike, but I have my favorites, and I have ones that I don't necessarily go to all the time. So, but I would say that Kyle bats about an 850 batting percentage for me, personally. That's just for me personally. Love his wines, I love his winemaking ability, and this Tempranillo is stellar. He's even hedging a little bit, Not a lot. Just a hair towards dill pickle, which is very, very common in Rioja. So that's pretty cool. I like it very much. So there you go. We're going to wrap up, watch the review of Washington Wines, Washington Wine Month. I got a few in as I wanted to. I wanted to get a couple more, but you know, life gets in the way sometimes. So look them up. Longship Cellars. A lot of people sell their wine. They do a good job. Washington Wine. Some of the best in the world. Not just because I live here, because it's true. Thanks for taking a little time out of your day. I really appreciate your support. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe to my channel so you can see what's coming up. You keep watching, and I'll keep helping you spend your wine dollars wisely.